There was a man walking down the street when someone screamed the worst imaginable insults at him, but he kept walking, as if nothing happened. Do you know what this man had that you don't? By the end of this story, you'll understand why words can never hurt you again. Listen closely. There's a secret Eckhart Tolle discovered after years of suffering, a secret so powerful it can make you completely unshakable, without shouting, without fighting, without lifting a finger. But before I reveal this secret, you need to understand something. You are not weak. The problem is, nobody taught you how your mind really works. Nobody explained why the words of others pierce you like invisible daggers. Have you noticed some people seem shielded? Like they have an invisible shield around their soul? While you lie awake, replaying what was said, they sleep soundly. What do they have that you don't? The answer will change your life forever. Eckhart Tolle spent years being the most vulnerable person in the world. Every criticism destroyed him. Every dismissive glance plunged him deeper, until one night, on the verge of a complete breakdown, something extraordinary happened. His mind fractured, but in fracturing he discovered something hidden behind all that fragility. He discovered space. What space? I'll explain in a way you'll never forget. Imagine your mind is like a house. For your whole life you've been living in the basement of that house, dark, damp, filled with strange noises. Every time someone attacks you, those noises become deafening. But Tolle discovered there's an upstairs in that house, a place where the noise from below sounds distant, almost like a whisper. That place is called presence. But here's the problem: nobody tells you. You can't reach that upstairs by thinking. Because thought lives in the basement. It's like trying to get out of a hole by digging deeper. Impossible. So how do you get upstairs? Tolle discovered it by accident. That night of crisis, his mind was so exhausted from suffering that he simply gave up. And in that moment of complete surrender, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in his life, he could observe his thoughts from the outside, as if he were another person watching a movie. It was like he'd stepped out of the basement and could now see everything from above. And from above, the words of others look different. They don't disappear, but they lose their power to hurt you. Because you're no longer the person identified with every thought. You are the observer, the silent witness. But how does this work in real life? Let me tell you about Emily, a woman who learned this technique. Her boss humiliated her every day, yelling at her in front of everyone. Emily would come home crying, with that empty feeling in her stomach you know so well. That feeling of having been emotionally violated. For years, Emily reacted the only way she knew how. She defended herself, argued, tried to prove she was right, but each confrontation left her more exhausted, smaller, more fractured, until Emily discovered Tolle's secret. She began practicing returning to conscious breathing. At first, only for a few seconds, then for whole minutes. Her mind protested, "This isn't working, you have to defend yourself." But Emily persisted, and something started to change in her inner presence. The next time her boss started yelling, something completely different happened. Instead of feeling that familiar pang in her stomach, Emily simply observed, as if she were watching a play from the audience. She saw her boss yelling, her face red with anger. She saw her own angry thoughts rising like clouds in the sky, but for the first time in her life, she didn't identify with either spectacle. She remained in the space, in the presence, in that place of pure observation. And her boss, for the first time, couldn't touch her. The most surprising thing wasn't that Emily felt protected. The most surprising thing was what happened to her boss. Without the emotional fuel feeding her drama, the anger deflated like a popped balloon. Her boss stood there, confused, unsure how to continue the script that had always worked. But this isn't just a mental technique. It's a profound spiritual transformation. Because when you discover that inner space, you realize something astonishing. The attacks of others aren't about you, they're about them. When someone yells at you, they're showing you their own pain, their own confusion, their own disconnection from that sacred space. And from your place of presence, you no longer need to defend yourself, because there's nothing to defend. The ego that used to feel attacked is no longer in charge. Something bigger governs now, something unshakable. Want to know the exact practice Tolle teaches to access this state? It's simpler than you imagine, but it requires something most aren't willing to give. It requires you to stop fighting this moment, to stop resisting what's happening now. Because look, when someone attacks you and you react, you're fighting on their turf. You're playing their game. But when you remain present, you completely change the rules of the game. It's as if they come with swords and you're not there to fight. Not because you run away, but because you exist in a different dimension. The dimension of the now. Tolle says the now is the only reality that exists. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. Only this moment exists. And when you manage to completely anchor yourself in this moment, something magical happens. Your mind runs out of material to create suffering, because suffering needs time to exist. It needs the past to create guilt. It needs the future to create anxiety. But in pure presence, there's no room for suffering. And do you know what's most powerful about all this? When you change your energetic frequency in this way, you automatically change the frequency of everyone around you. It's like you're a spiritual tuning fork. Your calming presence begins to affect others, without even saying a word. I've seen people who master this practice walk into tense rooms and automatically calm the atmosphere. They don't do anything special. They're just present. They just inhabit that upstairs space. But here comes the part I'm most excited to tell you about. This transformation isn't just for conflict situations. It's for your whole life. When you learn to live from presence, everything changes. Your work becomes more fluid. Your relationships become more authentic. Your creativity explodes because you're no longer spending energy defending yourself from ghosts. You are living from your true power. And that power, according to Eckhart Tolle, is limitless because it doesn't come from your personality. It doesn't come from your history. It comes from the very source of life itself. It comes from the pure consciousness that you are at your deepest core. But how do you know if you're truly accessing this space? There are very clear signs. The first is that you stop taking things personally. When someone is in a bad mood with you, you immediately know it's not about you. It's about their own internal state. And from that understanding, something beautiful arises. Compassion, not pitying compassion, but compassion of recognition. You recognize in the other the same pain you once experienced. And from that recognition, your response changes completely. Instead of counterattacking, you offer space. Instead of judging, you offer presence. And that presence is more powerful than any argument, more penetrating than any defense, because presence is contagious. When you are truly present, you involuntarily invite others to be present too. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. You don't have to convince the darkness to leave. It simply does. Eckhart Tolle recounts that after his awakening, his presence changed so much that people began seeking him out just to be near that energy. Not for his words, but for his state of being, for that unshakable tranquility that emanated from him. And that same tranquility is available to you right now. You don't have to wait years. You don't have to read hundreds of books. You don't have to go anywhere special. You just have to remember something you already know deep down inside. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your history. You are the conscious space in which all of this appears and disappears. And from that space, you are literally untouchable. Do you want me to show you exactly how to access that space right now? Do you want to experience firsthand what it means to be truly unshakable? Because what comes next is going to be the most transformative part of everything we've talked about. I'm going to teach you the exact method that Eckhart Tolle uses to stay in that state of unwavering presence no matter what's happening around him. Get ready, because your life is about to change forever. Right now, You're going to experience something that most people never experience in their entire lives. You're going to touch, even if only for an instant, that space of absolute power that lives within you. Close your eyes for a moment, or if you can't, simply pay attention to what I'm going to say. Eckhart Tolle discovered that there's a secret door to that upstairs space, a door that has always been there, but that your busy mind never notices. That door is your breath, but not in the way you think. It's not about taking deep breaths or doing complicated techniques. It's about something much more subtle and revolutionary. It's about noticing that you are breathing without making yourself breathe. Do you understand the difference? It's the difference between being the actor and being the observer. Your mind always wants to be the actor. It wants to control, manipulate, improve. But presence is pure observation. It's like becoming a curious scientist of your own inner experience. At this very moment, as you listen to these words, your body is performing the miracle of breathing, without your permission, without your effort, without your worry. There is an infinite wisdom operating through you that is thousands of times more intelligent than your thinking mind. Right now, your body is breathing on its own, without you controlling it, without you thinking about it. It's as if a higher intelligence is taking care of you every second. That intelligence is your direct connection to the unshakable space. When you place your attention there, something extraordinary happens. Your chattering mind runs out of work, because it can't analyze the breath that's happening now. It can only observe it, and in that pure observation you are reborn. Do you feel that tranquility appearing? That is your true nature. That is the strength you seek. It doesn't come from outside. You don't have to get it. You already are it. You had just forgotten it. Eckhart Tolle says that this simple act of returning to conscious breathing is the most powerful antidote to any emotional attack. Because when you're anchored there, you're connected to something bigger than any human drama. But here's the part that's going to blow your mind. This practice not only protects you, it turns you into an involuntary healer. When someone aggressive approaches a person who lives from this space, something unexpected happens. The aggression deflates, like a balloon losing air. Why does this happen? Because aggression needs resistance to stay alive. It's like fire that needs oxygen. When it doesn't find resistance, it automatically extinguishes. And what remains is the naked truth, a wounded person seeking connection. Let me tell you about Mark, a man who worked in a toxic environment. His boss was a tyrant who humiliated everyone, the kind of person who seemed to feed on the fear and submission of others. Mark learned this practice from Eckhart Tolle and began something that at first seemed impossible. He decided to be pure presence in the midst of chaos. At first, nothing visible happened. Mark simply remained anchored in his conscious breathing during tense meetings. He observed his boss's outbursts of anger as one observes clouds passing in the sky. Interesting, but not personal. His mind screamed at him, "This is ridiculous. You have to defend yourself. You have to prove your worth." But Mark had learned not to believe that voice. He had discovered that that voice was part of the problem, not the solution. Week after week, Mark cultivated that presence, not as a technique to manipulate his boss, but as a return to his true nature. And then something extraordinary began to happen. His boss began to change, not overnight, but gradually, almost imperceptibly. The outbursts of anger became less frequent. The personal attacks diminished. It was as if Mark's presence was automatically deactivating his boss's emotional triggers. And one day, something completely unexpected happened. His boss approached Mark after a meeting and said something he never expected to hear. "I don't know what it is about you, but I feel calmer when you're in the room. It's like I can think more clearly around you." Mark understood something profound at that moment. He hadn't tried to change his boss. He hadn't used persuasion techniques. He hadn't manipulated the situation. He had simply been authentically present. And that authenticity had created a field of calm that was contagious. That's the power of authentic presence. You're not trying to change anyone. You're not manipulating. You're simply being the purest expression of who you truly are. And that purity is contagious. But there's something deeper you need to understand. Eckhart Tolle teaches that every attack you receive is actually a disguised gift. Not because you enjoy the pain, but because each attack is a perfect opportunity to practice your return to that upstairs space. Think of it this way. If you wanted to train to be an Olympic athlete, you'd need progressive resistance, heavier and heavier weights, more and more intense training. The muscle strengthens precisely because of the resistance it faces. The same is true with your presence. Every difficult person in your life is like a personal trainer, specialized in strengthening your ability to remain centered. The more challenging the situation, the deeper your practice becomes. It's as if the universe is sending you personalized teachers to help you develop an inner strength you would never have otherwise discovered. The more difficult the teacher, the more potent your awakening becomes. But here's the part that will completely transform your relationship with difficulties. When you understand this, something magical happens to your perception. You begin to see every conflict as a masterclass in presence, every criticism as an invitation to dig deeper into your center, every attack as an opportunity to demonstrate your newfound strength, and gradually, something that seemed impossible begins to happen. You begin to give thanks for those difficult moments, not because you're a masochist or because you enjoy conflict, but because you know deep down that each one is making you more present, more authentic, more unshakable. Can you see the beautiful irony in this? The very people who used to hurt you now become your unwitting allies. Every criticism becomes an invitation to deepen your presence. Every attack becomes an opportunity to demonstrate your new strength. And something magical begins to happen. You start to be grateful for those difficult moments, not because you're a masochist, but because you know that each one is making you stronger, more present, more unshakable. But here comes the plot twist that will change your entire understanding of this practice. Eckhart Tolle discovered something that very few understand. True power isn't about becoming immune to attacks. True power is about becoming so transparent that attacks pass through you without touching you. What does it mean to be transparent? It means there's no longer a solid ego that can be hurt. Imagine that for your whole life you've been like a rock, solid, dense, with defined edges. Every blow you receive leaves marks, cracks, wounds that take a long time to heal. But transparency is different. It's like becoming crystalline water. When someone tries to hit water, it simply passes through. There's no resistance, no impact, no trauma. The water remains whole, pure, unperturbed. But here's the most beautiful part of this transformation. You don't lose your humanity by becoming transparent. You don't become a cold or indifferent person. On the contrary, you become more human, more authentic, more capable of genuinely loving. Because when you no longer need to protect a fragile ego, all that energy you used to spend defending yourself is now free to love, to create, to serve, to be who you truly are. This transparency doesn't make you weak. It makes you invincible, because there's nothing there to destroy. It's the invincibility of conscious emptiness, of the space that contains everything but cannot be harmed by anything. And when you reach this level of transparency, something incredible happens to your entire life. You no longer need to defend yourself from anything. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You no longer need to be right in arguments, because you know something that few know. You know that your true worth doesn't come from the opinions of others. It comes from your connection with the infinite source of life that you are. But this isn't the end of the story. It's only the beginning, because when you find this inner strength, you automatically feel the urge to share it. Not by preaching, not by teaching, simply by being a living example of what's possible. You become what Eckhart Tolle calls a beacon of presence. And beacons don't make noise. They don't shout for attention. They simply shine, and their light guides others to safety. Do you know what the clearest sign is that you've mastered this practice? You stop needing others to change for you to be happy. This is the greatest liberation there is, because you finally understand that your inner peace doesn't depend on external circumstances. It depends solely on your ability to remain present. And from that emotional independence, something beautiful blooms, genuine compassion, not forced or intellectual compassion, but compassion that arises naturally when you see that others are suffering the same illusion you once lived. The illusion that you are your mind. The illusion that you are your story. The illusion that you are vulnerable. But now you know the truth, and that truth has set you free. Eckhart Tolle says that this liberation is the greatest gift you can give the world, because every person who awakens to their true nature raises the collective consciousness of all humanity. It's like turning on a light in a dark room full of people. Not only can you see better, everyone can see better. And do you know what's the most beautiful thing of all? Once you touch this space, you never completely forget it. You may get distracted sometimes. You may sometimes return to the basement of the mind, but you always know the way back. You always remember that there is a place within you that is unshakable, and that memory becomes your anchor in life's storms, because the storms will keep coming. It's part of the human experience. But now you have something you never had before. You have an inner sanctuary that no one can touch, a sacred space that is uniquely yours. From that space, you can observe the storms with a calmness that was once impossible. You can watch them come and go. You can notice that you remain intact through it all. And that is true invincibility, not the invincibility of the ego that tries to protect itself by building walls, but the invincibility of the spirit that knows that in its essence, it is indestructible. Remember the man from the beginning of this story, the one who kept walking when someone shouted the worst imaginable insults at him. Now you understand his secret. It wasn't that he didn't hear the words. He heard them perfectly, but he heard them from a different place. I listened from the upstairs of the house, from a place of presence, from a connection with my true nature. And from there, the words were just sounds on the wind, important to the one speaking them, irrelevant to the one receiving them with presence. This is your destiny too, not as some distant goal, but as an immediate possibility. Because that space we've spoken of isn't in the future. It's here, now, waiting for you. You just have to remember to return to it, again and again, with patience, with self-love, with the understanding that each return makes you stronger. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll notice something extraordinary. You're no longer returning to that space. You're simply living from it. It's your new home, your new identity, your new reality. You are unbreakable, not because nothing can touch you, but because there's no one there to be touched anymore. There's only presence, only love, only life expressing itself through you. And that expression is the most powerful thing there is in this universe. Welcome to your true power. Welcome home.